Hey everyone, I haven't made a video in a while, but I thought I'd go through some basic stuff for beginners, really run through the code. I've made a few examples of things that beginners should know, and here we are. I'm going to be starting off with the variables. Um, Basically, variables are things that you can assign numbers, strings, integers, anything to. So, of course, it can be true or false, or a string like this, or just a number. And these variables can also be edited, like you can set your health to 100, and then you can change it -20, or you can make it plus, make it above 100 if you'd like. Now these are basic iterations, but they can get complex later on. Now, here's another way of showing variables and how they can be edited. So if you have two strings, these are two separate strings, and you can name it first name, second last name. You can combine the two, adding these double periods. So basically the point of this is to put a space between the names. Rather, or alternatively, you could delete this and put a space here. And it will combine the names, and you'll get an output like this. And this print function basically will put it here in the output area. So then you can see it's really good for troubleshooting and debugging later on. So you're going to be using print a lot. Okay, now let's go into operators. Now here is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then long division where you can get remainders. So now we're going to be using variables again, and we're going to be adding two numbers. So let's say sum 5 plus 3 will be 8. Basically here we're going to be printing the sum. Now difference is just subtraction, so 10 minus 4, 6. Okay, and multiplication. You just have 2, the star to signify an x to multiply and get 12. Now, this is division. 20 divided by 4 gives 5. And then also these can be set to any variables, like for example, what we can do like local a is equal to 20, and we can do like local b is equal to 4. Then we can have a divided by b and get the same number. Okay, now for here we're going to be defining a as 10, b as 20, and then first is equality. Now is a equal to b? Well, no, that's why it gives false. Now if b were 10, for example, then it would give true because they're equal. Now is not equal, you're going to use this little squiggly line and say, well, is a equal to b? Well, no, it's not, so it's true. A and b are not equal. Now greater than, is a bigger than b? Well, no, that's why it gives false. 10 is not bigger than 20, and then this is just the opposite. b is bigger than 10, so then the output is true. Okay, now it's greater than or equal to. Well, no. It's basically saying that is A greater than B? Well, no. Is it equal to B? No. So it's false. It's either or. Now, is A smaller? Yeah, so it's true. The only use case for this would be is like if A was 20, then this would lead to this would be true, and this would both be true. You will probably be using it quite a bit later. For example, with health, if you want to set a cap at 100, that's how you do it. Okay, now let's move over to logical. We'll be setting the variables, x is equal to true, y is equal to false. Now, this first one you really won't use that much, so it'll return true if both the values are true, but they are not. And because of that, it'll return false. Now, the or, it'll basically say if either of them are true. Now, y is or x is true, and thus will return a true. Now, Not X basically means since X is true, it needs to return false, and vice versa for Y. Okay, now single line comments are basically means that anything here, like if you were to type in print hi, that won't print until you take it out. So this is really just for debugging and looking at your code later in case there are problems. And these are just longer line comments in case you have a script that isn't working. For example, this one isn't working, but you may want to use it in the future. You can just put it here and save it there. Just an easy way of keeping it around. Okay. Now, functions. You're going to be using these a lot. Now, greet doesn't actually mean anything. It isn't a function in Roblox itself, and you can set it to whatever you want. For example, n. Now note that this function needs to be defined before. If you were to put it here, this isn't going to work. So when you call greet, you are passing over this variable John. And then John is being sent over, and it is taking the first thing that you send over as name. So if you were to send a second thing, you can, let's just say like score, for example, you can send over a second thing as 100. 100 will be counted as score. Okay, and then it will print hello, name, hello, John, exclamation. Return statement. It will basically add these two numbers, A and B. So add numbers A, 3, and 7, and it will print it. So what it's doing is it's defining 3 as A, 7 as B, and it will be adding these two like arithmetic as we used earlier, and will return the sum and print it. Multiply is the same thing, 4 as X, 5 as Y, return print. Okay, and then printing player information. Now this is kind of something we did earlier, but you just sending multiple variables. You can send as many as you want. This is just sharing them or just sending them up. So let's say that this will come into use later on when you don't actually know what these variables are going to be. And then you can have like print the name, print the score, vice versa. Okay. Now, you're going to be using while and for loops a lot. Now, let's say that count is 1. This is just a number, a numerical value. Just count is a commonly used one. It can be anything. Now, while count is under 5, it will do this. Now, if we added 0 here, it will go on forever, also known as a while true loop. So while true means it will go on forever. I do not recommend these because it's just unnecessary memory usage. So it will print count 1, and then it will add the count. So now pretend count is 2, 3, 4, 5. It will be like this. This is what it will print. And you don't have to add it by just whole numbers. You can go up by 0.1 or 0.01 or 3. So now 4I plus 5, 4 to 5. This is the lower, this is the upper bound. Basically means that this is where we're starting. We're starting at 1 and then adding 1 every time we go. Pretend there is a positive +1 here, although it isn't there. Pretend it is because that's how it's looking at it. It's saying I is equal to 1 to 5. So it'll go 1 iteration, pretend this is a 1, print 1. Okay? The second time it goes around, it'll be a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. And it will look like this. Now, let's say that you want to start at 5 and then go down to 1 and want it to be something like this. You want to go down the list. Now, this is just basic data structures. So we start at the upper bound of 5, 1, and instead of having the negative +1, we're going to have -1, and you go down the list. So if you were to set this to negative 0.25, it'll have a lot more iterations. Okay, those are the basic things you got to know. Thanks for watching, and I think this is a great start to the series. Goodbye.